I'd like to welcome viewers to a conversation with D'Amelio Network's newest speaker. DARYL Davis is a band leader and musician. He's played all over the world, including 32 years as piano player to the late, great Chuck Berry. While music is DARYL's profession, he has an extraordinary obsession, engaging members of the Ku Klux Klan, white supremacist groups, neo-Nazi groups, and others to get the answer to one question: how can you hate me when you don't even know me? DARYL's written a book. He has another in the works. He's done a film, and he's spoken extensively. And just 2 days ago, his TEDx talk exceeded 10 million viewers. DARYL, we are delighted to have you with us and to work with you to bring what we think is an incredibly important message to audiences. We were so touched by your story. We couldn't believe some of the things that you've been through and the experiences you've had, and we felt that audiences would be spellbound by what you had to say. So welcome, and tell folks a little bit about how this all got started.
Well, Tony, it's a real honor to be here with the D'Amelio Network. It's a real pleasure. Well, I've always had a fascination with racism because I've traveled all over the world, starting as a child. And now in my adulthood, playing music all over the world and giving lectures, I've been to a total of 57 different countries on 6 continents. And all that I've learned when I come back home, no matter how many different people I meet who don't look like me, don't speak the same language, maybe don't worship the same way or have the same culture, I conclude one thing: we all are human beings. And as such, no matter how far I go from this country or how close, everybody wants the same basic 5 things. We want to be loved. We want to be respected. We want to be heard. We want to be treated fairly. And we want the same things for our family as they want for their family. And if we remember those core values, no matter how far we go or who we meet who may be different than us, even the culture of white supremacy, we can navigate that society far better. And I can give you an example of that, if I may.
Absolutely.
I'm going to share the screen here. This is myself at a Klan rally. And listen to what this Klan leader, this imperial wizard, has to say about respect, one of those 5 core values.
Davis is one of the few African Americans you will ever find attending a KKK rally. More than attending, he is welcome.
I got more respect for that black man than I do you white niggers out there.
Has friendship transcended the color barrier? Listen to Kelly at a Klan rally.
I will follow that man to hell and back, because I believe in what he stands for and he believes in what I stand for. A lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me. And I'll respect him to sit down and listen to him.
The strange relationship of a KKK wizard and his black buddy. In Washington, I'm Carl Rochelle, CNN Sunday Morning.
Well, there you go. What did the man say? He respected me. What's that all about? He's the head of the Ku Klux Klan. I'm a black person. What he said was, we may not agree on everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him. Those were his words, not mine. So there you go. Respect and being heard. People want to be heard. I listened to him. As a result of these conversations, not overnight, but over time, showing that respect, allowing people to be heard, to express their views. And understand, when I say respect, I don't respect what he stands for, but I respect his right to express it. And because of that, he would reciprocate. And over time, that resonated with him to the point of where he left the Ku Klux Klan. And here's his robe right here, the same robe you saw him wearing in that video. And of course, this is the hood and the mask. The mask unsnaps for people who want their identity revealed, or they have it on if they want to be anonymous. So there are 2 key values right there: respect and being heard. And this is how I apply this in conversations with these white supremacists. And if you like, I can try to walk you through it step by step.
Absolutely. I was just about to ask if you could talk about the tools, because, you know, we're living in a culture and a time now where race is, the conversation about race is, and the 5 points that you made obviously are very, very appropriate, but it also now applies to politics and other areas as well. Whereas, you know, Thanksgiving can become an interesting time around the dinner table. So the skills that you've got can apply widely, and not only those instances, but also to business, for sure.
Absolutely. They're universal tools. We all use them. And, you know, I think everybody is familiar with what took place in Charlottesville just several years ago at a large white supremacist rally. There were all kinds of mayhem, all kinds of hatred going on there, a lot of ignorance going on there. And I'll show you what I did to address that. But I want to show you a scene from there. I'm going to share the screen again here. Here we go. Here I am at a rally about 28, 29 years ago. And this is one that you can see the burning cross going out there in the background. This is one from almost 5 years ago. The first one was in Maryland. This one is in Missouri. And what do I do when I go to these places? I always engage in conversation. I'm not there to engage in debate. Sure, we may debate some points, but I'm also there to listen and try to get an understanding of what these people are feeling and why they think the way they do. So I engage in dialogue. Now, what we have here, take you down to Charlottesville. This picture took place at that rally. And the men coming down the steps to your left are Ku Klux Klansmen. The guy in the white shirt on the first step trying to hit the black guy with the Confederate flagpole is what's known as the Grand Dragon. He was the Grand Dragon of Virginia, means state leader. And the black guy is trying to set him on fire with an improvised flamethrower, aerosol can, and he lit a match. Well, the Imperial Wizard, which means national leader, had already come down the stairs, maybe about 8 paces in front of the guy in the white shirt. So he's just out of camera shot. He missed the guy lighting the thing, but he turned around and saw this scene. He then pulls out a handgun and points it at the head of the black man and shouts, "Hey, nigger," and then lowers the gun and fires it, the bullet going into the gravel right there in front of the feet of the black gentleman. And then the Imperial Wizard turns around and continues walking in the same direction, right past the police wearing green neon vests just 10 feet away, who witnessed the whole thing and did absolutely nothing. For that reason, the mayor of Charlottesville fired the police chief. For that reason, several others that day. And now they have a new police chief, rightfully so. So let me show you a video clip of that, courtesy of the Virginia ACLU. You'll see the Imperial Wizard wearing a black bandana on his head, a blue jean vest, and black jeans. Here we go. There he is. Okay, there you go. That was that scene from several years ago. Now you saw him there in his regular street clothes. Here he is in his traditional Klan outfit. There. Now, what do you do if you were to see something like that happen in your town? And don't think for 1 second that it cannot happen wherever you may live. That's Charlottesville, Virginia. Even if you live out in Los Angeles or Seattle, Washington, far removed on the entire West Coast, it can still happen. Wherever there's hate, that can happen. So what do? You want to blame somebody? Well, yeah, sure. You can blame the black guy for trying to set people on fire. You can blame the Klansmen for trying to hit somebody with their Confederate flagpole. You can blame this Imperial Wizard right here for trying to pull out his gun, and he did fire it.
Right.
Yeah. Or we can blame the police for not doing their job to serve and protect, because on that day they were serving no one and protecting no one. Or perhaps we should blame ourselves for allowing our society, our country, to come to this point in the 21st century. But I'm going to tell you something. Sitting around casting blame is a waste of time, a waste of energy. It solves nothing. Our country can only become one of two things. One, it can become that which we sit back and watch it become, or two, that which we stand up and make it become. So as an American, everybody has the responsibility to ask themselves the question, do I want to sit back and see what my country becomes, or do I want to stand up and make my country become what I want to see? And trust me, this can happen in any society. So that is a personal question that each American has to ask. And as an American, every city in this country is your city. Because if America is your country, every city is your city, including Charlottesville. So whatever problem Charlottesville has, you have. Just like the US Capitol, which had an insurrection just a few weeks ago. That is your capital. I don't care where you live. So therefore, it is your problem. Take responsibility to address these issues.
And
so
you took responsibility in this case. I mean, the story that followed Charlottesville, when you told us about it, is extraordinary.
Well, I don't know how extraordinary it is. I've been doing this now going on 40 years, so I've gotten kind of used to it. But I'll tell you what I did. I called this gentleman up on the phone and I said, hey man, you and I need to talk. Not Klansman to black man, but man to man, American to American, because your Confederate history is just as much a part of my black history as my black history is a part of yours. We're both here together. It's all American history. Let's you and I explore American history together. He agreed. So we set a date and I drove over to his house by myself. I sat in his living room. The living room was covered with all kinds of KKK stuff and Confederate symbols. I sat on his couch, which was covered with a Confederate flag blanket. And I listened to him and his Klans lady fiance give me a 2-hour lecture on American history from a Confederate perspective, of course. I listened. Some things he got right, some things he got wrong, but I did not interrupt him. I gave him the floor. I gave him that respect. I allowed him to be heard. I treated him fairly. I listened, and when he finished, I corrected him on the things he got wrong, and I commended him on the things that he got right. Now he felt compelled to reciprocate because I listened to him, he's gonna listen to me. Just like the previous video you saw where the man said, we may not agree on everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him. So for my portion, I said, here's what I wanna do. There's a new museum in Washington, D.C., about an hour and a half from where we are at your house. I'd like to invite you down to my house. I will get tickets to go to that museum. And you and your fiance, come down to my house. I'll take you down there. Let's tour this new Black museum together, the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. He agreed. So we set a date. I got the tickets. They came down to my house and I put them in my car and drove them down to Washington, D.C., and we toured the museum. Here we are entering the museum, and you will note what he is wearing on his head. There's the Imperial Wizard, the Klanswoman, and myself. Now, what did we do while in this museum? We looked at displays on slavery, on segregation, integration, Jim Crow. We watched little video clips on Blacks in the arts, Blacks in science, in medicine, in education, in sports, in music, etc. And you see, he is holding his fiance there. Well, his favorite rock and roll artist is Elvis Presley. And Elvis is one of my favorites as well. I got to meet Elvis, I got to see Elvis, and I went to Elvis's funeral. But Elvis did not invent rock and roll. If it wasn't for my boss, Chuck Berry, there wouldn't be an Elvis Presley or the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, or anybody else. Anybody who plays rock music, all of their DNA goes back to Chuck Berry. Well, Chuck Berry donated one of his Cadillacs to the museum. So he wanted to see it. So we went to another portion of the museum and took a look at the Cadillac. But first, again, notice him holding his fiance. This is a picture of myself working with Chuck Berry. There we are. He's going into his duck walk. playing his famous Johnny B. Good guitar solo. Here we are at Chuck's Cadillac. Now who's holding his fiance? You see how fast I work. Well,
Very smooth.
Thank you. So I've honed that craft, over almost 40
tell.
years. Yeah. So, we toured this museum for about 2.5 hours, which is, trust me, you don't even get the tip of the iceberg. This museum is so expansive and extensive. It would take 2.5 months to even grasp the density of it. But anyway, 2.5 hours, was good enough for a start. So I said, okay, let's go. So we went outside, and I gave the Klanswoman there my cell phone camera and asked her to take a picture of the Imperial Wizard and myself. And I walked over and stood next to the marquee. This is what he did, totally unprepared. There we are. Now, this is a little bit less than a year from the time that he pulled that gun and shouted, "Hey, nigger," and fired it in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Right.
That happened on August 12th, 2017. This picture was taken in late June of 2018. So he's come a long ways. He still has a ways to go, but at least you see now he is going in the right direction.
Right.
And but it even goes deeper than that, because a few weeks after this picture was taken, the Klanswoman and the Imperial Wizard here are getting married. So now I've been working with them, for almost a year, and we've developed not only a relationship, but a friendship. So I get invited to this wedding. A Black man gets invited to a Klan wedding. But if you think that's deep, guess what? It goes even deeper than that. The woman, the Klanswoman, she is from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Her father was too ill to make it up this way to walk his daughter down the aisle, as traditionally fathers do, and give her away. So rather than ask one of their trusted Klan members that you saw coming down the steps there in Charlottesville, they asked me if I would step in as a surrogate father and walk the Klan bride down the aisle. Can you believe that? Well, I accepted. And that's exactly what I did. There she is. And if you look up, they got married in the backyard of his house. If you look up on the second story, you'll see the Confederate flag up in the bedroom window. And as I said, he's come a long ways. He still has a little ways to go, but things just don't happen overnight. They happen over time. As you've seen, this is happening all within the span of a year. So here we are, the Imperial Wizard Klansman groom, the Klanswoman bride, and the surrogate father.
Extraordinary.
That's how I walk him through step by step.
That's amazing. Is he still a member of the Klan at this point?
He is on the fence. He's on his way out.
Because you've had numbers of people, it's over 200, who basically through conversation and learning and knowing more and engagement with you have decided that they'd renounced their old lives and have become changed people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it starts with dialogue. Let me tell you something. A missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. We spend way too much time in this country talking about the other person, or talking at the other person, or talking past the other person. Why don't we just spend a few minutes talking with the other person? You'd be surprised at the results.
Yeah.
And you just saw them,
Absolutely.
I'm not just talking the talk, I'm showing you walking the walk.
And speaking of talking, when you speak out at audiences, when you take this presentation, and I've seen all sorts of videos of presentations that you've done. One of the impressive ones was from the Clinton Global Initiative University, where Bill Clinton himself is sitting next to you, and he and you are engaged in a conversation about this. And it was extraordinary to hear the words of the president, and he had enormous praise and awe for what it is that you've taken on and what you've accomplished. When you do talk to audiences, after the talk is over is where the interesting stuff happens to me, because that's when people come up and talk about the things that they were afraid to raise their hand and ask the question about, or whatever. So when people come up to you after the speech, what do they talk to you about?
Well, here's what happens. I'll give a speech, and then I'll do a Q&A. And following the Q&A, people will come up to the podium because they have one last question or whatever, or perhaps they want to see one of the robes up close or something that I bring. And then I would say maybe 2 to 3 out of every 10 lectures I give, there will be someone standing off in the distance, just milling around, not doing anything. And I've come to learn what's happening. That person is waiting for the crowd to dissipate, go away from the podium. And when that happens, he or she will approach me. And I know it's going to happen, but I just continue packing up my stuff. And then he or she will say, Mr. Davis, I really enjoyed your lecture. Thank you for coming, and et cetera. And then they'll like look around, make sure, no one's within earshot. And they'll say, my mother is in the Klan, or my father is a neo-Nazi. And I've heard it before. I've heard it many, many times. And they'll say, I was raised that way. And now I'm here at University of fill in the blank. And my boyfriend is Jewish, or my girlfriend is Black. And I can't take them home. My parents will kill me, or they'll disown me. And I don't want to tell my friend because they'll drop me. So they have this secret that is burning on their chest, creating an ulcer, and they have to get it out. So I'm the perfect person with whom, they can share this confidence with, and we can sit down and talk about it as to how to approach it and how to, gain better understanding, because they were raised that way.
Right.
And now they're here. And, when you're raised in a certain area that is conducive to that type of ideology and mentality, everybody goes to the same high school, they cheer the same football team, they vote for the same candidate, they shop at the same grocery store, swim in the same community swimming pool, et cetera. And how they pretty much have the same beliefs. Now they come away, say to college or university. Well, the high school and neighborhood don't come with them. Right. Because at the college and university, there are high schools and neighborhoods from all over the country and perhaps all over the world. Right. So they're getting an additional education, an empirical education, in addition to the academics. And so they're realizing certain truths and certain myths. Jewish people don't have horns. Black people don't have tails, And now their parents wanted them to go away and go to school, but they didn't want them to get that education. And so how do they come back? So how do they come back home and share that with their parents and with their friends with whom they grew up and tell them they're wrong?
Part of their education as well, part of our education here at this company, listening to you as we were talking about starting to work together, go through your stories and talking about your experiences. There were times when our jaws were just dropped because we couldn't believe what you'd gone through and the kinds of people that you had met and their beliefs, and the 180-degree turnaround that they managed to accomplish just on their own. In other words, you didn't persuade them. It's just through conversation they came to their own conclusion that they were on the wrong path, which is the best way for those kinds of changes to happen. It's the only.
Yes, and I think, I was at fault too. I think we all are at or of the belief, because we've been hearing it since childhood, that a tiger does not change its stripes, a leopard does not change its spots. So why would I believe that a Klansman or white supremacist would change their robe and hood or their ideology? That's what you have. That's who you are. Well, I was at fault for believing that, as I believe many people are at fault for believing that.
Right.
The difference is a tiger and leopard are born with their stripes and spots. They can't change them. A racist is not born with that ideology. That is a learned behavior. What can be learned can become unlearned. It may take some time, but it can be done. And I don't care who they are, how far they are from here, they all are human beings. And as I pointed out, we all want those same 5 core values. And if we employ them, we have a lot better time navigating society.
Perfect place to end it. It's a great point, and it's a point that's positive, and we all have an opportunity on a daily basis to practice the kinds of ideas that you were talking about, communication ideas, and make the world a better place. So
remember, when two enemies are talking, they're not fighting, they're talking. It's exactly. When the conversation ceases that the ground becomes fertile for violence. So we want to keep the conversation going.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to take this conversation to a close, but DARYL, thank you. We look forward to working with you and bringing your message off to some audiences who I'm sure are going to love it.
And thank you. I appreciate that.